Mhm.
Every choice, every moment is repeating infinitely. That's eternal recurrence. Like,
That sounds terrifying.
again, one more person that comes to mind is
I would love to break it down for our listeners.
strap in, folks. This is going to get really dark.
Alright, picture this. A lonely detective stands in a dilapidated room, staring at crime scene photos. His eyes, haunted by the horror he's seen, hold a glimmer of something deeper. I'm Vishal.
And I'm Mohit. Today we are diving headfirst into the abyss that is Rust Cohle. Strap in, folks. This is going to get really dark.
But wait, first, Mohit, let's talk about us, right?
Sure, yeah. Sure. So guys, we are B school buddies actually from Ahmedabad who discovered that beyond geeking out over balance sheets and operational efficiency, we're also massive content nerds. But
Yeah.
now here we are to slice through some of the content that we love with our business meets pop culture lens. One more thing, last but not the least, we promise that our takes here are going to be juicier than our profit margins.
Absolutely, yeah. This is one thing that we were good at, takes and not profit analysis, for sure, back in college. All right, so okay, I'm gonna continue this conversation about us for a bit. So Mohit, as far as I can remember, you're selling beer in Goa. These are the two words that everyone loves back in India. At least I used to. Beer and Goa together. It's perfect. And yeah, I'm here in Amsterdam and I'm working at Booking and trying to sell people hotels. But yeah, enough about us. So let's get back to this guy, right? Rust Cohle. What's happening with this guy? This I remember watching this show back in 2013, and it was so intense. It was like a philosophy course which I never took even in my undergrad or my masters. But then all of a sudden, wanted to become an expert in everything. What
It's
is it about this
absolutely,
character that's so
yeah.
unsettling?
I don't even know where to start, man, to be honest. Rust Cole, he's a walking existential crisis, is he not? One minute he's
Mhm.
talking about the futility of existence, the next he's solving crimes like some nihilistic Sherlock Holmes, is he not?
Yeah, and I think more than anything, it's the contradiction, right, that makes him fascinating. I would love to break it down for our listeners. What's at the core of Rust's worldview?
It's a tough question, but
Hmm.
if you think about it, I think it's time. Or as
Yeah,
Russ says, time is a flat circle.
that's something I think I've seen in one of these museums, a Van Gogh or a Rembrandt. Very artsy and very pretentious, to be honest.
I know, right? But see, here's the kicker, right? If you read a little bit about it, it's actually
Hmm.
based on some heavy philosophical concepts. We're talking Friedrich Nietzsche's Eternal
Hmm.
Return, right? That there's so many different stories that you read about eternal return. I don't know if you've read this poem called Tithonus by Lord Alfred Tennyson, which
No.
actually talks about how this protagonist, the hero, he falls in love with the goddess, and so
Yeah.
that he to remain with her forever, he asks for immortality. And the poem goes into how he rues the fact constantly and he wishes for death, right? That is what in a
Ooh.
way eternal return is. Yeah.
Somewhat similar to our folklore back in India, Mahabharata and Bhishma, Pitama.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely, something
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So, like I said, I never took a philosophy course, but why don't you break it down for us, Professor?
Let me double click on this. So again, imagine your life as a vinyl record, right?
Yeah.
Imagine this record playing over and over forever.
Hmm.
Every choice, every moment is repeating infinitely. That's eternal recurrence. Where the character demands an eternal life from God, only to
Yeah.
regret it every moment of his existence. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. For Rust, I think it means we're all just puppets in some cosmic play we can't escape, right? And
But let's go deeper into this Nietzsche connection. I think this is interesting. This is the same guy who said a lot of other blasphemous stuff, right? Like God is dead, something like that.
yeah, absolutely. See, Nishi's whole deal was challenging traditional morality, right? And the idea of absolute truth. Does that sound familiar
Yeah.
to you?
Yeah. I think I've heard something like this in my only philosophy course, which is True Detective. That I think human consciousness is a tragic misstep in evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Russ takes Nishi's idea and absolutely runs with them. He's
Yeah.
not just questioning morality, by the way. He's questioning the very value and the very idea of human existence.
Okay, all of this is great. I think it's going in the direction that I think it's going into, but here's what I don't get. If Rust thinks that everything is predetermined, why bother solving crimes? Why not just kick back, sit with his long mane, with a six pack, and watch the world burn?
But here is where we get into the juicy stuff, right? Like, and that's where the idea of Rust Cohle's honorable nihilism comes in.
Mm-hmm. Honorable nihilism. I remember sixth standard English class, something called an oxymoron. This is what it is, right? Honorable nihilism. Sounds like that.
I guess one could say that, right? But I
Yeah.
think, see, Raz doesn't believe in any inherent meaning or morality, but he still chooses to act according to his own code, right? That's what we saw in the series. That while he'll be spewing all this gyan, so to speak, but then
Yeah.
you also see him solving crimes, and it doesn't really add up. But that's where I think that's because he's acting according to his own code, right?
Hmm.
It signals to what an honorable nihilist would do in this conundrum: be the good guy while still trying to figure this shit out.
All right, so let me get that clear. So he's trying to create his own meaning in a meaningless world. That's kind of nice in a twisted way.
It is twisted for sure. It's like existentialism with a gun and a bad attitude.
Oh my god, yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, let's dig deeper. We've got Nietzsche, we talked about nihilism. I'm sure there were more. Like there were like 12 demons there, right? There were not just two. Who else is
Oh,
influencing our favorite detective?
I'm sure. I mean, the kind of complexities that you and I, especially, I think that's why we got hooked on to True
Yeah,
Detective, right? It's because of the layers and layers and
yeah.
layers which are to Rust Cohle. So it's not just Nietzsche, you're right. But get ready, we're about to take a field trip to Depression Town. And the next person we're going to talk about is Arthur Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer, I think, believed that life is just endless suffering caused by our desires. Does that sound familiar?
I think human consciousness is a tragic misstep in evolution. Yes, I know we became too self aware. Nature created an aspect of ourselves out of ourselves. We are creatures that should not exist by natural law. I want to speak it in his voice, but I don't have. I'm not born in Texas and I don't smoke as many cigarettes. So, no.
You remember Sanchez from the Rick and
Of
Morty fame?
course. Yeah.
Minus obviously the whole wubba lubba dub dub thing.
Yeah. There is some similarities there, of course. Both of them feel a bit similar, but there are other characters that come to mind as well, right? So a nice, funny dinner party would be him, Sanchez, throw in a bit of BoJack, maybe get Alfred from Batman, and we have a nice party going on there
I mean, we'll add in Tyler Durden as well, right? From
for
Fight Club.
sure.
We
Yeah,
buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. Oh my
yeah,
god. Might
yeah,
as well sell off all my possessions.
yeah. And it's
Yeah.
interesting, right? Now that I think about all these people on this dinner table. Rust's philosophy seems to stem from his personal tragedies, right? Like Rick Sanchez, like Bojack, and if you think about it, one more character that we might add to this dinner party is Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So there is something there in each character's arc.
No, no, absolutely. I think that's a great observation, man. I mean, I think trauma definitely shapes these characters, right? Again, one more person that comes to mind is our very own Rockstar from Rockstar, which is Ranveer Kapoor, right?
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
remember, there
absolutely.
was this scene where he was making music, and his teacher goes like, "Dard nahi hai, where is the pain?"
There is no pain.
So I think there is definitely something about trauma that's to be said.
Yeah,
Like you very rightly said, Bojack's childhood,
yeah,
or even Walter White's cancer diagnosis. Now that we're
yeah,
adding so many more characters to this
yeah,
party,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think let's add our favorite old pal David Benatar as well to the conversation, right? And nothing says a party
Oh,
like a
God.
little antinatalism, don't you think?
Yeah, a really fun guy at the baby showers. But I would love for our readers to know, and please remind them of what antinatalism is, Mr. Professor Mohit.
All right, sure. Well, so Benatar argues that it's better never to have been born at all. He believes that bringing new life into the world is morally wrong because life inevitably involves suffering.
I remember this line which he says to Marty in one of those trip rides, which
Mhm.
Marty sort of hates. I think the honorable thing for our species to do is to deny our programming, stop reproducing, and walk hand in hand into extinction. Right?
Yeah, I can just picture that scene where Marty rolls his eyes and he goes
God,
like, "Oh my
like,
god!" Like I think Marty's already hungover and he's like, "This is definitely not the cure."
this
This
is not
guy.
what I want. I don't want to invite this guy to my house for a dinner party.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely dark stuff, man. I mean, but you can see how it all ties into his overall philosophy. If life is suffering and everything repeats endlessly, why subject new beings to that? Why be born at all? Why give birth at all? Right? Makes
Yeah,
sense.
and then to further that thought, this we touched upon that earlier as well. That if he really believes in all of this, why doesn't he just opt out? Like this, isn't this the right thing to do? Knowing all of what you know?
No, I think that's where it gets interesting. See, I think there's two parts to this. One is I think there's a part of him that is chicken shit, but we
Yeah,
don't get to see that part, right? Because
yeah.
I mean, of course, the guy who made the show wants us to love Rust Cohle and appreciate him, but
Idolize in some way. Yeah,
he idolize him. So, but of course, there is a bit of cowardice there where he can't take his own life. But I think there's something more than that, right? There's something more than that, which is, and here is where I will allude to that episode of Rick and Morty, if you remember, where Morty says in that episode that nobody exists on
yeah.
purpose, nobody belongs anywhere, everyone's gonna die. Come watch TV.
Oh my God, I remember that one. And like just an aside, I when I started watching Rick and Morty, I thought it would just be like a weird sci-fi show, but it got so much deeper, right? And like especially this episode when he said it, it's like nihilism, and with a side of might as well stick around for the show. It's so
Exactly.
weird.
Yeah, exactly. See, Rust is similar, right? He sees the meaninglessness of it all.
Yeah.
But instead of watching TV like Morty, he channels it into catching bad guys. That's
Hmm.
the only difference. It's like he's saying, see, everything is pointless, so I might as well make some criminals miserable while I'm here.
Yeah,
That's all.
yeah. So yeah, like a lot of illusions that you already made. Nietzsche with a badge and a Netflix subscription.
Yeah, and seriously good looks. But seriously, both characters find this weird comfort in meaninglessness. Instead of
Yeah.
letting it paralyze them, they turn this into some kind of a freedom.
Yeah, and for both Rick and Rust, this means not just solving crimes, it also means dropping philosophical bombs on your poor partner.
Oh my god, like Marty is just petrified half the time, right? And
I
and
know, I know.
so is Marty, right?
Yeah,
So is Marty. But
yeah.
but again, but let's talk about this a little further. Do you think Russ's philosophy affects their dynamic, or where does really Marty come into play? Do you think he has an importance as a character?
Absolutely. Like, can you imagine having a normal conversation with Rust over coffee? I think this is where the contrast or like the yin and the yang and all of those balancing acts come in, right?
Their relationship is indeed fascinating. I mean,
Yeah,
Marty actually represents the everyday man. He's trying to really find meaning in family, in
that's right.
work, in his kids. He really does think that all of this exists for a reason.
Yeah,
That we are born in this planet to do something, right? To do
yeah, we
something
have a purpose.
meaningful. And while he might be an asshole in his own ways, like he can cheat on his wife, etc.,
Yeah, yeah,
but he still tries to find meaning in each and everything, right? And but
yeah,
again, he has a partner who again is an asshole in his own right, who's constantly challenging these very foundations.
yeah. It's like both of them sitting in a cab, sitting in their car together, riding. It's like watching two different worldviews, right? But maybe that's the reason they make a great team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's another important aspect of Rust's character. Despite his bleak outlook, he's still able to form connections, right? Of
Yeah.
working towards a greater good.
Yeah, it's almost like these characters, Rick and Rust, they need a Marty and a Morty to ground them, to keep them connected to the world they're so determined to reject, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, that sort of brings me to another philosopher.
Oh, there are more? Okay.
And to our viewers, we'll restrict it to just that. Otherwise, it might just get a little too
Yeah,
heavy, I feel. But
yeah,
again, we would be remiss if we would not talk about Albert Camus.
of course, the absurdist himself. But how does he fit in all of this?
See, Camus was all about embracing the absurdity of life, like you said, right?
Yeah.
He argued that even if life is meaningless, we should rebel against that
Hmm.
meaninglessness by creating our own purpose. What we
Yeah.
were sort of just alluding to some time back, right?
Yeah, yeah, and this is what Rust is trying to do, right? He acknowledges that there's darkness, the world sucks, everything is bad, there's no meaning. But he still is going on, right? He's not opting out.
Precisely, and there's a quote from Camus that feels as if it was written just for Rust Cohle, and it says, "The only way to deal
Mhm.
with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very
Yeah.
existence is an act of rebellion."
Yeah, yeah, that's powerful, right? So in a
Yeah,
way, by continuing to solve crimes, seek justice, and rebel, Rust is rebelling against the very nihilism he preaches.
absolutely. Yes, I think he's saying the world is dark and meaningless, but I'm going to shine a light anyway.
Yeah, I think for all his doom and gloom, there's something weirdly inspiring about Rust Cohle, and I think that was intended, right, through the show.
Absolutely, and that I think that's why we love him. If we think about it, right? It's not
Yeah,
just because we might be a little pessimistic in nature, you and me.
yeah,
It's not just that. While we agree that he's a pessimist, but it's not just that, right? He's a kind of pessimist who chooses to act as if optimism isn't completely futile, right? And there's a strange kind of hope in that as well.
yeah. It's like someone he's telling us that hey, everything is bad, the universe is indifferent, life is suffering, but just carry on, just get on with stuff, right?
Just get on with stuff and make things better. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
not just
that's
watch TV like we
yeah,
established. And see, I think we've been talking about it, but just maybe to summarize of sorts, that's the real lesson we can take from Rust Cohle, that life might be meaningless, but in the grand scheme of things,
yeah,
we can still choose to give it meaning through our actions.
yeah. That's a nice summary as well for the character, and maybe somewhat for all the other characters who are sitting on this dinner table. But maybe we'll
Mhm.
touch upon those later. But for now, like whoever is listening, what do you think? Is Rust Cohle a modern day philosopher king or just a really depressing magic 8 ball? Is his worldview something to aspire to or a cautionary tale?
We want to hear from you guys. Call us, write to us, send us smoke signals, help carve your response into a beer can, and throw it into the cosmic void. We'll find it because time is a flat circle after all.
And remember, in the words of the great Rust Cohle, and this is my favorite quote, life's barely long enough to get good at one thing. So be careful what you get good at.
Oh man, that's pretty cool. Well, but
Yeah.
this has been our time. I'm Mohit.
And I'm Vishal. Time may be a flat circle, but we're getting out of here. See you in the next one. Bye bye.
Ciao.